The Dialogue of St. Catherine of Siena, Part 16. Of the method by which the soul separates herself from imperfect love, and attains to perfect love, friendly and filial. Hitherto I have shown you in many ways how the soul raises herself from imperfection and attains to perfection, which she does after she has attained to friendly and filial love. I tell you that she arrives at perfect love by means of perseverance, barring herself into the house of self-knowledge, which knowledge of self requires to be seasoned with knowledge of me, lest it bring the soul to confusion, for it would cause the soul to hate her own sensitive pleasure and the delight of her own consolations. But from this hatred, founded in humility, she will draw patience, with which she will become strong against the attacks of the devil, against the persecutions of man, and toward me, when, for her good, I withdraw delight from her mind. And if her sensuality, through malevolence, should lift its head against reason, the judgment of conscience should rise against it, and with hatred of it hold out reason against it, not allowing such evil emotions to get by it. Though sometimes the soul who lives in holy hatred corrects and reproves herself, not only for those things that are against reason, but also for things that in reality come from me, which is what my sweet servant St. Gregory meant when he said that a holy and pure conscience made sin where there was no sin, that is, through purity of conscience, it saw sin where there was no sin. Now, the soul who wishes to rise above imperfection should await my providence in the house of self-knowledge, with the light of faith, as did the disciples, who remained in the house in perseverance and in watching, and in humble and continual prayer, awaiting the coming of the Holy Spirit. She should remain fasting and watching, the eye of her intellect fastened on the doctrine of my truth, and she will become humble, because she will know herself in humble and continual prayer, and holy and true desire. Of the signs by which the soul knows she has arrived at perfect love. It now remains to be told you how it can be seen that souls have arrived at perfect love. This is seen by the same sign that was given to the holy disciples after they had received the Holy Spirit, when they came forth from the house and fearlessly announced the doctrine of my word, my only begotten Son, not fearing pain, but rather glorying therein. They did not mind going before the tyrants of the world to announce to them the truth, for the glory and praise of my name. So the soul, who has awaited me in self-knowledge, as I have told you, receives me on my return to her with the fire of charity, in which charity, while still remaining in the house with perseverance, she conceives the virtues by affection of love, participating in my power, with which power and virtues she overrules and conquers her own sensitive passions, and through which charity she participates in the wisdom of my Son, in which she sees and knows, with the eye of her intellect, my truth and the deceptions of spiritual self-love, that is, the imperfect love of her own consolations, as has been said. And she knows also the malice and deceit of the devil, which he practices on those souls who are bound by that imperfect love. She therefore arises with hatred of that imperfection, and with love of perfection, and through this charity, which is of the Holy Spirit, she participates in his will, fortifying her own to be willing to suffer pain, and, coming out of the house through my name, she brings forth the virtues on her neighbor. Not that by coming out to bring forth the virtues I mean that she issues out of the house of self-knowledge, but that in the time of the neighbor's necessity she loses that fear of being deprived of her own consolations, and so issues forth to give birth to those virtues which she has conceived through affection of love. The souls who have thus come forth have reached the fourth state, that is, from the third state, which is a perfect state in which they chase charity and give birth to it on their neighbors, they have arrived at the fourth state, which is one of perfect union with me. The two last mentioned states are united. That is to say, one cannot be without the other, for there cannot be love of me without love of neighbor, nor love of the neighbor without love of me. How they who are imperfect desire to follow the Father alone, but they who are perfect desire to follow the Son. And of a vision which this holy soul had concerning divers baptisms, and of many other beautiful and useful things. As I have told you, these latter have issued forth from the house, which is a sign that they have arisen from imperfection and arrived at perfection. Open the eye of your intellect, and see them running by the bridge of the doctrine of Christ crucified, which was their rule, way, and doctrine. They place none other before the eye of their intellect than Christ crucified, not the Father, as they do who are in imperfect love, and do not wish to suffer pain, but only to have the delight which they find in me. But they, as if drunken with love and burning with it, have gathered together and ascended the 3 steps, which I figured to you as the 3 powers of the soul, and also the 3 actual steps, figured to you as in the body of my only Son, Christ crucified, by which steps the soul, as I told you, ascended, first climbing to the feet, with the feet of the soul's affection, from thence arriving at the side, where she found the secret of the heart, and knew the baptism of water, which has virtue through the blood, and where I disposed the soul to receive grace, uniting and kneading her together in the blood. Where did the soul know of this her dignity, in being kneaded and united with the blood of the Lamb, receiving the grace in holy baptism in virtue of the blood? In the side, where she knew the fire of divine charity. And so, if you remember well, my truth manifested to you, when you asked, "Sweet and immaculate Lamb, you were dead when your side was opened. Why then did you want to be struck and have your heart divided?" And he replied to you, telling you that there was occasion enough for it. But the principal part of what he said I will tell you. He said, because my desire toward the human generation was ended, and I had finished the actual work of bearing pain and torment, and yet I had not been able to show by finite things, because my love was infinite, how much more love I had. I wished you to see the secret of the heart, showing it to you open, that you might see how much more I loved than I could show you by finite pain. I poured from it blood and water, to show you the baptism of water, which is received in virtue of the blood. I also showed the baptism of love in 2 ways. First, in those who are baptized in their blood, shed for me, which has virtue through my blood, even if they have not been able to have holy baptism. And also in those who are baptized in fire, not being able to have holy baptism, but desiring it with the affection of love. There is no baptism of fire without the blood, because the blood is steeped in and kneaded with the fire of divine charity, because through love was it shed. There is yet another way by which the soul receives the baptism of blood, speaking as it were under a figure, and this way the divine charity provided, knowing the infirmity and fragility of man, through which he offends. Not that he is obliged, through his fragility and infirmity, to commit sin unless he wish to do so, but falling as he will into the guilt of mortal sin, by which he loses the grace which he drew from holy baptism in virtue of the blood, it was necessary to leave a continual baptism of blood. This the divine charity provided in the sacrament of holy confession, the soul receiving the baptism of blood with contrition of heart, confessing when able to my ministers, who hold the keys of the blood, sprinkling it in absolution upon the face of the soul. But if the soul be unable to confess, contrition of heart is sufficient for this baptism, the hand of my clemency giving you the fruit of this precious blood. But if you are able to confess, I wish you to do so. And if you are able to, and do not, you will be deprived of the fruit of the blood. It is true that in the last extremity, a man desiring to confess and not being able to, will receive the fruit of this baptism of which I have been speaking. But let no one be so mad as to arrange his deeds that in the hope of receiving it, he puts off confessing until the last extremity of death, when he may not be able to do so. In which case it is not at all certain that I shall not say to him, in my divine justice, "You did not remember me in the time of your life, when you could. Now will I not remember you in your death." You see then that these baptisms, which ye should all receive until the last moment, are continual, and though my works, that is, the pains of the cross, were finite, the fruit of them you receive in baptism through me is infinite. This is in virtue of the infinite divine nature, united with the finite human nature, which human nature endures pain, in me, the Word, clothed with your humanity. But because the one nature is steeped in and united with the other, the eternal Deity drew to himself the pain which I suffered with so much fire and love. And therefore can this operation be called infinite. Not that my pain, neither the actuality of my body be infinite, nor the pain of the desire that I had to complete your redemption, because it was terminated and finished on the cross when the soul was separated from the body, but the fruit which came out of the pain and desire for your salvation is infinite, and therefore you receive it infinitely. Had it not been infinite, the whole human generation could not have been restored to grace, neither the past, the present, nor the future. This I manifested in the opening of my side, where is found the secret of the heart, showing that I loved more than I could show, with finite pain. I showed to you that my love was infinite. How? By the baptism of blood, united with the fire of my charity, and by the general baptism given to Christians and to whomever will receive it, and by the baptism of water, united with the blood and the fire, wherein the soul is steeped. And in order to show this, it was necessary for the blood to come out of my side. Now I have shown you, said my truth to you, what you asked of me.